Have you ever noticed how quiet a room feels when you're alone with a decision you can't undo? Not dramatic, not loud, just quiet. A kind of silence that wraps around you, not with comfort, but with a weight you didn't expect. That's the kind of quiet I live with now. It doesn't come from the walls or the ceiling. It comes from within, from realizing I made a choice that changed the rhythm of my life in ways no one warned me about. Moving into a nursing home felt like the logical thing to do. I was 82. My knees ached in the winter. My family, though loving, lived far and were busy raising their own. The brochures painted a lovely picture: safety, meals, companionship, and I wanted to believe them. I really did. The first few days were filled with polite hellos and name tags. I met staff with warm smiles and nurses who genuinely tried. But then, the little things started disappearing. Not physically, but in ways I didn't even know mattered so much. My morning routine, for example. I used to start my day watching the sun rise from my kitchen window, a mug of tea in hand, wrapped in the quiet of my own thoughts. Now, breakfast comes on a schedule, with the same tray and the same lukewarm coffee, delivered with efficiency but not warmth. I remember once trying to sleep in because my body simply asked me to rest more. But the lights flicked on, doors knocked. It was time for vitals. No space to say, just 10 more minutes. And that's when I first felt it, that something precious was slipping through my fingers. I didn't lose everything overnight. It was more like a slow erosion, the kind where you look back after a few months and barely recognize the version of yourself you've become. I once walked freely in my garden, stopping to inspect the roses, whispering to the tomatoes as if they needed encouragement. Now, even going outside requires coordination, permission, and sometimes waiting in a line. And by the time your name is called, the moment of wanting to be outside has already passed. But what caught me most off guard wasn't the structure or the routine. It was the fading of purpose. At home, I had a reason to move, to act, to decide. Watering plants, folding laundry, choosing what to eat for lunch. These weren't chores, they were anchors. Here, everything is done for me. Meals arrive, beds are made, even my clothes some days are picked out by others. People think that's comfort, that it's easier now. But ease without engagement isn't freedom. It's stagnation dressed in politeness. And then there's the stillness that comes not from peace, but from absence. Absence of noise, of movement, of people who once dropped by just to say hi. At first, the phone rang often. My daughter called to check in. My grandson would FaceTime me from college. Over time, those calls spaced out. "We'll call tomorrow, Grandma," turned into, "Sorry, this week's been hectic." I understand. Truly, I do. Life is full, but understanding doesn't make the silence easier to carry. If you're still watching this, maybe you're someone who's considering a move like this. Or you know someone who is. And I want to gently ask, have you thought about what really gives your day meaning? Because it's not always the big things. It's the way you make your toast, the song you hum while doing the dishes, the quiet moment after a shower when you look at yourself and still feel like you. In places like this, those tiny identities can slip away without anyone noticing. Except you. You always notice. Please don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying all nursing homes are bad or that no one should consider them. There are places full of compassion and laughter, where people find new purpose and friendships. But I'm talking about the truths no one writes in the brochures, the parts they soften with flowery words and staged photographs, the emotional costs that come with convenience, and how for some of us, those costs feel far heavier than we expected. If you're nodding along or just quietly reflecting, I'd love to know you're still here. Just drop a simple "I'm here" or share your thoughts below. It means more than you think. And if you know someone, a parent, a friend, even a neighbor, who's standing at the same crossroad, maybe share this video with them. Sometimes hearing a story is all it takes to change the way we choose. Let's keep going. There's more I want to share. Not because I want to dwell on regret, but because I hope through these reflections, you'll be able to make a clearer, kinder choice for yourself or someone you love. There was a day, I remember it clearly, when I sat in the common room near the window, watching the rain draw lines down the glass. A gentle storm, the kind that used to make me feel cozy at home. But here, it just made everything feel colder. Across from me, an older man named George was sitting silently, staring into his lap. I had spoken with him before. He had a sharp wit and told wonderful stories about building houses in his youth. But that day he didn't speak. His hands, once so animated with gestures and memories, rested still on his knees. And I realized we were both fading. Not because of age, but because we no longer had anything to pour ourselves into. Purpose isn't about being busy, it's about mattering. And in this place, it's frighteningly easy to feel like you don't. At home, my days had rhythm. I would write in my notebook, jot down ideas, memories, dreams. Now the notebook sits untouched in a drawer because every time I open it, I feel like I have less to say. Not because I don't care, but because so much of life here happens around me, not with me. There's a difference between being looked after and being seen. And somewhere along the way, I stopped feeling truly seen. The staff are kind, many of them. They do what they can. But kindness in routine becomes just that. Routine. You get your meals, your meds, your check-ins. You nod, say thank you, and the day rolls on. No one really asks about your dreams anymore. Your opinions, your old favorite movies. The joke you heard once in 1974 that still makes you chuckle when you think of it. The things that make you, you. And if no one asks, you slowly stop telling. One afternoon, a younger nurse asked if I wanted to go outside. I said yes, of course. Sunlight had been rare that week. She wheeled me out to the garden courtyard. It was small but lovely. Roses, benches, a gentle breeze. But what struck me wasn't the flowers or the weather. It was how I had forgotten what fresh air felt like on my skin. I sat there quietly stunned, realizing how long it had been since I had just been outside. Not for an appointment, not for a scheduled activity, just to exist in the world, to feel wind, to smell leaves. And that realization broke my heart a little. Because freedom, I had learned, doesn't vanish with a single decision. It erodes when you stop noticing what you're missing. There are still moments, of course. Tiny sparks, a letter in the mail, a warm slice of pie, a conversation that makes you laugh. But they're fewer now, and they feel like echoes of a life I once lived, rather than pieces of the life I'm living now. That's the truth I wish I had understood. That moving into a nursing home isn't just about safety or support. It's a decision that redefines your entire world, your space, your choices, your voice. And as the days stretch out, a strange thing happens. You become very good at waiting. Waiting for someone to visit, waiting for your name to be called, waiting for lunch, waiting for the next reminder that life is still happening, even if it feels a little farther away now. Waiting becomes your new rhythm. And yet, in all that stillness, your heart keeps whispering the same question. Is this all there is now? If you're still watching, and I'm grateful if you are, I want to ask you something personal. When was the last time you felt truly alive? Not just comfortable, not just taken care of, but alive, curious, engaged, moved. If that memory brings a smile to your face or a small ache in your chest, hold on to it. Let it guide your decisions. Because when we choose convenience over meaning, safety over purpose, we trade in pieces of our soul for silence. And if you've been thinking about sharing this with someone who might be standing where I once stood, please do. It's not always easy to start this conversation, but sometimes a video, a voice, a story, that's all it takes to open a door. There's more I need to say, more truths I wish I had known. And I'll keep sharing, not to dwell in sadness, but to offer clarity. Because behind every regret is a lesson worth passing on. I once believed that love alone would be enough to keep me tethered to the world I had known. That even if I moved away from the home I had built, the people in my life would remain the same, present, attentive, engaged. But I've come to learn that love, while deep and real, is not always visible in the way we imagine. People still care, they still say the words. But when you're no longer in their daily orbit, when your presence becomes an appointment rather than a natural rhythm, the nature of the relationship shifts. Not out of malice, but out of distance and time and the weight of everyday life. At first, my daughter called every evening. We'd talk about her work, the kids, the silly thing their dog did that day. It kept me grounded. But slowly, those calls moved from nightly to weekly, from weekly to whenever there's time. I don't blame her. She's doing her best. But the silence left behind is something no one prepares you for. There were nights I held the phone in my hand, my finger hovering over her name in my contact list, wondering if I should call or just let it be. I didn't want to interrupt. I didn't want to be that kind of parent, the one who clings too tightly. So I waited. And the longer I waited, the harder it became to dial. I don't say this with bitterness. I say it with a quiet ache. Because when you're in a place where most conversations revolve around medication, meal times, and maintenance, your soul begins to crave something more. The warmth of laughter around a dinner table, the familiar creak of your own staircase, the sound of your name spoken not as part of a checklist, but with fondness. You begin to wonder if the world you once lived in has simply moved on without you. You see photos on social media of family gatherings you weren't part of. You hear stories secondhand about milestones and moments, and even when people tell you, "We thought it would be too far for you to come," what you really hear is, "We're getting used to life without you." That might not be what they mean, but it's what you feel. Inside this facility, there's a woman named Darlene. Elegant, always wearing a scarf, always polite. She told me once, "I used to have a weekly bridge night. Every Wednesday, 4 of us would gather with wine and gossip. I haven't played in over a year now. The other women still meet, but they say it's just easier without having to pick me up." She said it with a smile, but her eyes told a different story. That quiet resignation, that slow acceptance that your absence has become convenient for others, is one of the hardest things to swallow. And yet, we learn to adapt. We learn to not expect the call, the visit, the card, not because we stop loving, but because we start protecting ourselves, our hearts, our sense of self. We make our world smaller so it doesn't hurt as much when the outside world forgets to knock. If you're still with me, still listening to these stories, please know your presence matters. Even in this small digital moment, it matters. Drop a comment below to let others know they're not alone, that someone out there is listening, reflecting, caring, because one of the greatest gifts we can give each other, especially in this season of life, is the assurance that we are still seen. And if you know someone who's quietly struggling with this decision, whether to move into a nursing home or how to support a loved one who already has, share this with them. Not because I have all the answers, but because these questions deserve to be heard out loud. These feelings deserve space. And maybe, just maybe, this story can open a door to one more conversation that wouldn't have happened otherwise. I still have more to share. More pieces of truth that don't show up in glossy brochures or well-meaning family discussions. Not because anyone is lying, but because some truths are too quiet to be heard unless you've lived them. And I've lived them. Let's keep going. There's something else you need to hear. I never imagined that comfort could become a kind of prison. That having every meal served, every bed made, every task handled for you could slowly chip away at the very things that make you feel alive. Before I moved in here, I thought rest was what I needed. I thought being taken care of would finally bring the peace I had earned after so many years of working, raising children, tending a home. But no one tells you that when you stop doing the little things for yourself, your body begins to forget how. At home, I had my little rituals. Getting out of bed with purpose, stretching by the window, making my own coffee with just the right amount of milk. Now I wait for a knock on the door, a cheerful voice saying, "Time to get up." I smile and nod, because they mean well, but inside something resists. There's a part of me that still wants to choose when the day begins. Some mornings I wish they would just forget to come, just once, so I could feel like I owned my time again. It's a strange thing, how quickly strength fades when you stop using it. I used to take short walks around the block, nothing impressive, just enough to keep the legs working. Here there are wheelchairs everywhere. People who arrive walking now depend on others to move. It's not because they suddenly aged overnight, it's because their world shrank. They stopped needing to stretch, they stopped needing to balance, and soon their bodies stopped offering those things entirely. I can feel it in myself too, the way my legs hesitate when I stand, the way stairs now look taller than they used to. the way I gripped the armrest just in case. There's a woman here, Alice, who came in bright-eyed, full of determination. "I'm not slowing down just because I live here," she said. She brought resistance bands, made a schedule, even led a little morning movement group for the first few weeks. But then winter came, and her walks became shorter. The group fizzled out. One day I saw her sitting quietly, staring out the window. "I feel like I've aged a decade in 6 months," she said softly, almost to herself. And I understood, completely. This place, though well-meaning, is built for safety, for efficiency. It's not built for vitality. It's not built for growth. And over time, that shapes you. It shapes what you believe you're capable of. You begin to ask for help before you try. You begin to wait before you move. You begin to settle. I often think about how much of my strength I could have kept had I continued living in my own home. Maybe I would have had to slow down. Maybe I'd need a handrail or a neighbor to check in. But maybe, just maybe, I'd still be reaching for the broom, the pan, the garden hose, still using my body the way it was meant to be used. Not as a patience frame, but as a living thing. And then there's the question no one dares to ask. What happens when you want to leave? When you realize this place, while safe, is no longer what you want? I used to think leaving would be easy. If I don't like it, I told myself, I'll just go back home. But what I didn't expect was how quickly home would stop being mine. The house sat quiet for too long. My family started making decisions, storing boxes, renting out rooms, selling things they thought I no longer needed. The walls that once held my memories became unfamiliar again. I remember asking about returning, and my daughter hesitated. "Wouldn't it be safer here?" she asked, and I couldn't answer. Not because I agreed, but because I had begun to doubt myself too. That's what happens. Your confidence erodes when you're no longer trusted to make the small decisions. And when it comes time to make a big one, to leave, to reclaim, to return, you question your own capacity. Not because it's gone, but because no one has asked you to use it in so long. If you're still here with me, listening, reflecting, I want to thank you. These are not easy truths to speak. They come with layers of emotion, of guilt, of love, of longing. But maybe if we keep speaking them, we can help each other see things more clearly. Maybe we can prevent others from feeling caught in a place they didn't expect to stay in forever. If this video has brought someone to your mind, someone who's considering a similar move, or someone who's already inside and unsure, please share it with them, not to alarm them, but to give them a fuller picture. Because the decision to move into a nursing home should never be made with only half the story. And I'm not done yet. There's still something I need to say, something I didn't realize until it was almost too late. Let's keep going. No one tells you how much of your dignity is tied to the smallest, most mundane parts of your day. Choosing when to shower, what to wear, or even just closing the door behind you. At home, privacy was something I never had to think about. It was there, naturally. My bedroom was my sanctuary. The bathroom door was mine to lock. I could linger in the mirror, wrap myself in my favorite robe, hum a song to myself without wondering if someone would knock. Or worse, come in without asking. Here, that kind of privacy feels like a luxury from another life. It began with little interruptions, room checks, scheduled rounds. Just making sure you're okay, they say. And I know it comes from a good place, safety, routine, duty, but slowly I stopped feeling like I had space of my own. My room became a shared zone, a checkpoint, not a haven. There were mornings I'd just begun dressing when the door would swing open. "Oh, sorry," they'd say, and I'd smile, pretending not to mind. But I did. I minded deeply. There's something tender and quietly powerful about being allowed to be alone on your own terms, to sit in silence without explanation, to pause in the middle of your day and simply breathe. Here, that pause is often interrupted. Timetables rule the day, meds at 8, lunch at noon, physical checks mid-afternoon, lights dimmed by 9. It's well-oiled and efficient, but it doesn't leave room for the unpredictable rhythm of being human. And then there are the moments of dependence, the times you must ask for help to do something you once did without a thought. Needing assistance to bathe, to dress, even to use the restroom. I remember the first time I pressed the call button and had to wait uncomfortably long before someone arrived. It wasn't anyone's fault. They were busy, helping someone else. But in those minutes, sitting and waiting, something shifted in me. A quiet shame crept in, the kind that doesn't come from being seen, but from feeling unseen in a moment of vulnerability. There are people here who manage better than I do, who smile through it, crack jokes, make light of the loss of privacy. I admire them, but for me it's a slow burn. I miss the days when I could lock the bathroom door and sing off-key to an old tune. I miss choosing my own pajamas. I miss the simple act of deciding how I'd like to be spoken to, softly, with respect. Not in the clipped tone that sometimes slips out when the staff are rushed or distracted. I'm lucky in many ways. My roommate is gentle, she reads a lot like me, and we've made an unspoken agreement to give each other space when we can. But I've heard stories, shared rooms with people who shout through the night, who wander confused, who don't respect boundaries. And even if you have a curtain, it's never truly private. You hear every sigh, every cough, every whispered phone call. And no matter how much you try to make your corner feel like home, add a blanket, a photo, a lamp with soft yellow light, it still feels like a space you were assigned, not one you created. If you're still with me, thank you. These truths aren't easy to say, and they're not always easy to hear. But I believe deeply that honesty is a form of kindness. And maybe, just maybe, someone out there needs this truth to make a better decision for themselves or someone they love. If you've ever helped care for someone older, or if you are in the midst of choosing care for yourself, please consider this side of the story. It's not about blame, it's about awareness, about knowing that care without dignity is only half a kindness. And privacy, it's not a luxury. It's a part of the soul's nourishment. If someone you love is weighing their options right now, maybe share this video with them. Let them hear a voice from the other side. Sometimes knowing what's really waiting inside the walls of a facility helps us better protect the freedom and self-respect of those we hold dear. There's still one more thing I need to tell you. Something I didn't expect. Something no one warned me about. Not just the struggle of moving in, but the deep and surprising challenge of trying to leave. Let's talk about that next. When I first agreed to move into a nursing home, I told myself it wasn't forever. Just for a while, I said. Just until I feel stronger. My daughter even used the word temporary. We all believe that, or maybe we needed to believe it because the truth that this might be a one-way door was too hard to say out loud. But days turned into weeks and weeks into months. And then one day, the idea of leaving didn't feel brave anymore. It felt impossible. The thing no one tells you is that while the decision to move in feels heavy, the realization that you can't move out again, that's heavier. At first, it's logistical. Who's keeping up your house while you're gone? Who's watering the plants, checking the mail, making sure the roof doesn't leak? If no one's there, things fall apart faster than you'd think. The garden overgrows. The fridge gets emptied. The silence settles into the rooms. And then quietly, people start making decisions for you. They probably won't need this anymore. Let's donate that chair. We should think about renting out the house. And they mean well. Truly, they're trying to be practical. But with every item boxed up, every wall stripped of memory, your anchor to the world you knew begins to dissolve. I remember the first time I brought up the idea of returning home. My daughter paused, not out of cruelty, but out of concern. "But how would you manage?" she asked. "It's safer here." And I didn't have a good answer because I had changed. I wasn't as strong. I needed help getting up some mornings. My confidence, that quiet fuel that keeps you moving forward, had been chipped away, not because anyone meant harm, but because I had let others do for me what I stopped doing for myself. There's something deeply unsettling about realizing that the longer you stay, the harder it is to leave. Not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, financially. Your legs may forget how to climb stairs. Your hands may forget how to twist a stubborn jar lid. But even more than that, your mind forgets how to believe in your own independence. Doubt moves in quietly, and it speaks in a gentle, convincing tone. Maybe this is just easier, and for some, maybe it is. Some need full-time care, constant attention. There is no shame in that. But for others, like me, it becomes a slow erosion of options. The longer you remain, the less feasible the outside world feels. And sometimes the door back simply disappears. The home is sold, the savings are used. The people who might have helped you build a new life outside are now accustomed to you being here. The world moves on, and the part you used to occupy is filled with something else. I've met others here who thought this would be temporary too. They had similar hopes. Just for a little while, they'd say, but the truth is, few of us ever leave. Not because we're trapped by rules, but because we're slowly untethered from the life we once had. And rebuilding that tether takes more strength than most of us realized. If you're still listening, and if you are, thank you. It means this conversation matters to you. Maybe you're at the edge of this same decision, or maybe someone you love is. And I don't share all of this to frighten you. I share it so that no one walks into this experience with only the glossy surface in mind. So that you ask better questions, dig deeper, and protect the pieces of yourself that matter most. If I could go back, I would have fought harder to find alternatives. I would have looked into home care, daily visits, community programs, anything that let me keep one foot in the life I had built. I would have insisted on preserving my independence, even if it meant asking for help. Because help is not weakness, but surrendering too soon to a life that doesn't reflect who you are, that can leave you with a quiet, daily kind of sorrow. So if this video has stirred something in you, share it, not just for me, but for the thousands of others who sit quietly in rooms just like mine, wondering if anyone out there truly understands. Share it with your children, your neighbors, your community. Let's make this conversation part of how we age, not as something to fear, but something to face with open eyes and full hearts. And if you're someone like me, living in a place like this, still wondering what could have been, I want you to know your story still matters. Your voice still matters. It's never too late to ask new questions, to speak up, to reach for connection, even here, even now. Thank you for spending this time with me. It means more than you know.